Hey guys, if you were looking for battle advice from a girl in pink, then you've come to the right place. In today's video, we're going to be going through every single type in the game, and I will let you guys know what is the best or most relevant attacker in the current metagame so you guys can get started on powering up certain things in Pokemon Go. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys already have a lot of appropriate counters for certain types, but that doesn't mean that you have all of the bases covered. I, for one, have gone completely ham on powering up everything on my account to be the best player that I can possibly be.
I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was.
But I'm still not there yet, and I'm sure most of you are not either. And the first type we're going to talk about is Bug type. Yes, so far in the game, there's not really been a major use for bug type attackers in the game, but if you want to be ready for every single situation and you want to have a good bug type, this is the current best bug type in Pokemon Go. Now, Scizor is not really a priority currently and probably won't be very much in the future, but if you end up going against one of your friends that's fighting with a Celebi, this might be a good choice. And to combat that Celebi, you will most likely want to use a Scizor with Fury Cutter and X-Scissor. This will end up being kind of a surprise counter to a lot of people and they may not know what to do with it, so this may be a good choice if your friend likes to battle with their Celebi in the future. Now, bugs are cool and all, but I'm a post-emo child and, well, I like dark types. Look, okay, I just think dark types look cool, but this brings us to the best dark type attacker in the game, Tyranitar. Now, Tyranitar dominates a completely different category as well and is extremely OP. This is why you need to get out and get a Tyranitar today. But in all seriousness, you definitely want to have a good double dark Tyranitar on your team. And that moveset you're looking for is Bite Crunch. Tyranitar completely dominates and is the best counter against Mewtwo and various other psychic types. And all in all, just kind of slays. Now, Tyranitar is one of those few occasions where he's not going to be outclassed for a very long time. He won't be outclassed until Gen 6 when Yveltal, the Bacon Bird looking legendary, comes out. And I mean, do we really want to wait till Gen 6 to slay? I don't think so. Enough ranting about how awesome Tyranitar is. We have a lot of types to cover today, so I'm just going to try to get into it a little bit more. So next up is Dragon type. By far the best Dragon type currently in the game is Rayquaza, the Gen 3 legendary, which I hope most of you have in your decks. I was lucky enough to snag a hundo Rayquaza when he came around, and I'm hoping to get a couple more good IVs when the boxes come, because I fully intend to max more out. But keep in mind that there is some potential competition coming along in Gen 4 with the Gen 4 legendary dragons. Now, these three don't look like traditional dragons, but they do bear the type and are very, very powerful. Now, that's not to say that powering up a Rayquaza would be a bad choice by any means. If anything, I think they might be on par or just below Rayquaza. Now, as far as electric types go, right now we are very lucky to have Raikou in the breakthrough boxes. But if you don't have a bunch of extra candy to spare, a good Jolteon can also be a very powerful electric type attacker. As far as fairies go, Gardevoir is definitely the prettiest and the best. Teamed with the moveset of Confusion and Dazzling Gleam, this ends up being a very powerful fairy type attacker, which can be useful in very specific situations. But if you're going to use a Gardevoir all the time, be sure that you are good at dodging because she's a little bit fragile. Gardevoir could soon be rivaled though by Togekiss in Gen 4, along with some other fairy types later down the line. But I would never say that Gardevoir was a bad choice to power up. In fact, I plan to have a max team of 6 at some point. Right now, I think I just have 2. Now, if you're really gonna get that fight on, you need to go out and get yourself a Machamp. Or 6, or 12, or however many you can have. Now, I say this because I use Machamp constantly. And if your friend that you are battling is throwing in a Snorlax or a Blissey just trying to slow the battle down so they can gain an advantage, this is what will kill their advantage. A good maxed out Machamp can destroy any Blissey and obliterate the competition. That is why I have a maxed out team of 6 and 0 regrets. If you didn't take advantage of the fighting event, make sure that you take advantage of Cloudy Days. Now, Machamp does have some potential competition coming up, but for now it is the best fighting type in the game, and it probably won't be far surpassed, so maxing out a Machamp is not really a risky bet. Fire! If you can afford the rare candy, definitely either power up an Entei or a Moltres. Both of these guys are about equally as powerful, and neither would be a bad decision. Now, because I didn't get a good Moltres back in the day,
they ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
I got more lucky with Entei, and I personally powered up my 200s. Now, I know this isn't very typical, but if you have a good Entei or a good Moltres to power up, do it. While fire types aren't super relevant when it comes to gyms, they might come in handy when PvP rolls around. But if the rare candy cost is too high, a good Charizard with Blast Burn from Community Day will do a great job. Worst comes to worst though, if you don't have any of those, a good Flareon should do the trick. Now, as far as flying type goes, Rayquaza still takes the crown for best in its class. Now, flying type probably isn't going to be in high demand, so I wouldn't worry about this one too much, but a good Rayquaza with the flying moveset would be a good idea. And if you still don't have a good Rayquaza, a good Dragonite will really come in handy. Thank the Pokegods for Community Days. So if you have any extra candy laying around for Dratini Community Day, it's definitely something to consider to make a flying type Dragonite. Now, the best ghost type in the game has a legacy moveset, and that is a Gengar with Shadow Claw. It definitely might be worth powering up a Shadow Claw Gengar if you have one, or if you can trade for one. I personally only have one, and he's not great, but I do plan to max him at some point. Kids, guess what time it is? It's Oddish time. That's right, we are moving on to the best grass type attackers in the game. Now, Community Day Venusaur with Frenzy Plant definitely takes the cake for the most power behind a grass type Pokemon. Of course, my favorite grass type attacker is a little bit smaller and blue. But if you want to have just one good grass type to power up for PvP, Venusaur would definitely be a safe bet and a really good choice. That is, if you don't want to max out an Oddish like I did. Am I okay? It is important to keep in mind, though, that Venusaur will probably be outclassed next gen by Tangrowth, along with some other good grass types. It won't make Venusaur irrelevant, it will just make it no longer the best. Alright, so at this point we are already over halfway done. There are just so many types. But no pain, no gain, am I right? I hope this isn't painful for you. Saddle up, kiddos, we've got 8 types to go. Now it's time to address ice types. While Lapras does happen to be my favorite ice type that's currently in the game, it isn't the powerhouse that it once was. That's not to say that maxing a Lapras would be a bad choice, it just wouldn't be as killer as it used to be. And Articuno by far is currently the best in the game. Let me just get down. Now, I'm personally going to wait to max out any ice types. I might end up maxing out my really good Lapras, but that's a personal choice. But come next gen, Articuno is more than likely going to be outclassed immediately by Mamoswine. Now, Mamoswine is going to be way easier to obtain, so I personally can't justify pumping the candy into Articuno. And since it looks like PvP will probably be out post-Gen 4, definitely something you might want to wait on. And next up, we have to talk about normal types. Now, I do want to preface this by saying, don't power up a normal type and expect to get the best results. I personally only power up certain normal types for gym defense, and I expect most of you do the same. But if for some reason you are looking for the most powerful normal type to max out for battle, I would say max a Snorlax. And if you're some reason going to be using a Snorlax for battle, I would put it with Lick and Hyper Beam. Now, I definitely don't recommend doing this unless you have every other type prioritized before this and they're all maxed out and you just have extra dust that you want to throw at a battle-ready Snorlax. But if you want to, there you go. There's my recommendation. Poison type is another one of those types that I wouldn't recommend in Pokemon Go per se to power up first. But in the right circumstance, it probably could be a nice surprise and a nice little change up, something that people aren't used to battling. So a maxed out Muck with the right moveset could end up proving pretty handy. Now keep in mind when I say this is very niche situations where a person doesn't remember how to deal with a Muck, but honestly these circumstances are going to be far and few in between, so I would put it in a pretty low priority. I'm gonna start counting down from here. 5. Ground types. Now ground type is an interesting one because it has a lot of resistance to certain types. And the best ground type attacker by far is Groudon. If you plan to make a Groudon battle ready, definitely hit it with that Mud Slap and Earthquake action. This will yield the current highest level of ground type damage you can do in the game. Now Groudon itself is pretty future proof in the sense that it will not get outclassed. Unless in Gen 8, 9, 10 they come out with some monstrosity that has this amazing earth-shaking power. But for now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and Groudon will likely keep the crown from here on out. But if you don't have the means to max out a good Groudon, a great Rhydon will definitely get the job done. And now keep in mind that Rhydon is just going to get more powerful going forward, with its evolution Rhyperior just coming in Gen 4. So it's really up to you, your candy, and your resources whether or not you're going to power up a Groudon or a Rhydon. 4. Steel type. A powered up Metagross with Bullet Punch and Flash Cannon will pack the biggest damage for the type. Now Metagross may have competition when it comes to Jirachi and Dialga, but we have no idea how far off Dialga is, and we have no idea how far off Jirachi is. So maxing out a Metagross or two will definitely not hurt you if you have the means to do it. Steel types are interesting because it's one of those types that I know from personal experience a lot of people don't know how to deal with. And in PvP, it could prove extremely useful against the right opponent. 3. Water type. If you want to get your opponent soaking wet, I've got the Pokemon for you. Back to legendaries, of course. Kyogre is currently the best water attacker in the game, and like Groudon, probably won't be outclassed anytime soon. Slap that guy with Waterfall and Hydro Pump and you are good to take down anything that's weak to water. But if you don't have the means to max out a Kyogre, it would definitely be a good idea to max out a good Gyarados with Waterfall as the quick move and a good Vaporeon. I remember the days when Vaporeon was everyone's favorite attacker and Gym Dropper and... We've let you fall, Vaporeon! I'm so sorry! But that doesn't mean he can't make a comeback. All these emotions made me lose count. I think we're down to just 2 more types. Type number 2 is... Rock! A lot of you guys probably already know about this, but the best rock attacker by far in the game is my boy, Tyranitar. A Tyranitar with Smackdown and Stone Edge will definitely pack the biggest rock type punch in the game. I know I'm getting really excited about this, but I just really like Tyranitar. He's like an edgy Godzilla. But if you weren't able to attend the community day to get Tyranitar with that very specific moveset, you could always just have a Tyranitar with Bite and Stone Edge. It'll still pack a really great rock type punch, but it just won't be the extremely overpowered version of itself. And if you weren't able to attend the community day at all and you just don't have any Tyranitars or very many, and you want to save them as a dark type attacker, you can always whip out a Golem. Now when I say Golem, I am talking about its original Gen 1 form, but its Alolan counterpart can definitely make a very interesting addition to your team. And it could probably throw off some people's knowledge of types and what it's weak to and everything, so they might not necessarily know the best Pokemon to whip out against it. And last but not least, number 1, Psychic type. Now, Psychic type is probably pretty predictable for you guys on the Legendary front, with Mewtwo being the best Psychic type attacker in the game. Now, Mewtwo is nearly future-proof with its only competition coming in Gen 7, and that will probably just rival it and not completely pass it based on what I read. But even if it does, Mewtwo still has a lot of time in the sun. I plan to ultimately have at least a team of 6 maxed out. It's going to take quite a while to do that, but I am prepared and the cost is definitely worth it. But if you haven't been lucky enough to get an EX Pass, or you haven't gotten a Mewtwo yet, or you just can't justify the power-up cost, there are some non-legendary alternatives. Some of the notable ones being Alakazam, Gardevoir, and Espeon. But with any of these, having a good Psychic type on your team is always an amazing idea. And that about wraps it up for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for coming and hanging out with me. Love you all to pieces, and make sure to leave in the comments which Pokemon you are excited to have on your main team of 6.